Trigger warning. This video contains tragic gameplay footage. It's funny how people like to call the same things different names. If it's in your hair products or your mouthwash, they call it peroxide. Put exactly the same thing into drain cleaner and it's called bleach. Well, Wargaming have announced that they will be perfecting the premium vehicles with preferential matchmaking that we all paid cold hard cash for. Perfecting means fist fucking them. They're going to give them a little buff, a quick hand job, a tummy rub, then fuck them all off into high tier matches. So just like in real life, it might say peroxide on the label, but really they're asking us to drink a large bottle of bleach and smile whilst we're fucking doing it. Wargaming are going to take the items we paid for in cash, throw them under the fucking bus, then charge us money if we want a refund. A refund will be paid in, you guessed it, in-game currency. Welcome to World of Salt, where all of our tanks are not belong to us. World of Tanks is a massively online, free-to-play tank combat game. Players go online and take part in simulated player versus player combat battles, roughly from the period of 1930s to 1960s. Started in Russia back in 2010, it has since grown into one of the most successful freemium video games of all time. It is now available to play in nearly all territories on multiple platforms. The business model relies on 75% of people playing for free, whilst 25% of players pay for premium accounts, buy premium vehicles, paid for with real life money, and granting increased rewards and faster XP mechanics. On paper at least, this game is not pay to win. E25. But levelling up is faster and easier if you stick your grubby cum-stained hand in your pocket and start flicking money at your computer screen. That's what I do at least. Credit where credit is due. Wargaming, the company that basically is World of Tanks, has come a long way. It started out as a few mates, coding on stolen computers, working out of the back room in a Belarus crack house. Less than 10 years later, they mostly are still mates, coding on their own computers, based in the front room of a whorehouse in Cyprus. No, seriously, they now have a massive headquarters in Cyprus and have enormous investments in half the country's banking and infrastructure. If you don't play World of Tanks, then Wargaming is probably the biggest fucking gaming company that you've never heard of, with over 60 million players registered worldwide and Bloomberg listing one of its founders as a billionaire. It's safe to say that there is no shortage of hookers and cocaine flying across the table in their head office. And I mean that quite literally. Whilst the World of Tank community can possibly be a trifle salty and volatile at times, by and large, they're a lovely bunch. I mean, I feel right at home there, so how salty can they possibly be? I'll put my cards on the table right from the start, and I shit you not, despite them seeming to lose their way in recent years, I actually really like the company Wargaming. I'm not going to go into detail, but suffice it to say I had an experience with their customer service team many years ago that was so overwhelmingly positive it left a lasting impression on me. Props where props is due. I can't speak of other people's experiences, but for me personally, they went out on a limb for me, and for that they still have my absolute respect. I also really like this game, despite its faults. I've played it for years. I'm also genetically hardwired to be horribly, horribly shit at World of Tanks, and no amount of practice will ever overcome this. I'm really, really terribly fucking soul-crushingly bad. I really am the worst fucking tomato to ever download this game and start failing. I played about 100 matches, then bought a Lurwy, then promptly spent 20 or so games YOLOing at the enemy and dying, scratching my fucking head and wondering why I wasn't immortal. I am what the community refers to as a wallet warrior. The term wallet warrior is a fucking pejorative, like calling someone a gypsy or an illegal. It's an insult. However, unlike most prejudicial racial or social slurs, there is some truth behind this term. I'm a skillless fuck who is terrible at this game. I roll around in high-tier premium tanks, tooting my horn and firing wildly in every direction, dragging down my team's chance to win, and reversing my fucking Lurwy into the nearest convenient canal at every opportunity. Has someone behind you shot you in the tracks by accident recently? That was probably me. Seen someone camping at the back of a map in a Russian heavy? That was probably me too. That guy face planting into the enemy front line at ramming speed in his ELC AMX? That was probably my best match of the day. This said, the entire game is bankrolled by people like me. I spend lots of money on this game so that 75% of the players get to play for free. So like it or not, I fucking earned, bought the right to YOLO into every match in my Lurwy and drive that fucking thing into every fucking canal on the slightest whim, if that is what tickles my fucking fancy. I am not saying it's fair, right, or just. It's just the way it is. So I get to have a fucking opinion too, even if I can't hit the side of a fucking barn with a derp gun. If I was so close to it, my face was pressed up against it. Look, I'm a shit player, but I enjoy the game, so don't hate me for playing the game I paid for. I mean, have you ever heard someone say, "I'm really bad at sex. I think I'd better stop doing it"? No, of course not, especially if you paid for it. Don't misunderstand me. I try my best. I don't cheat. I don't AFK. I don't masturbate during matches. Often. My minimum standards might not be very high, but it's better than nothing. And frankly, better than a couple of players I've seen recently. So what precisely has been going on, and why is everyone losing their shit with wargaming and their plans for premium vehicles in World of Tanks? The short version is, Wargaming have made an announcement that they're going to take away lots of premium vehicles that people have bought with real money, fuck around with them, remove their preferential matchmaking status, and throw them into high tier matches. The owners have had no say in this. They will not get a cash refund. They're being offered a partial refund in in-game currency, or the opportunity to trade it for a different vehicle with a substantial surcharge. Needless to say, the community is going fucking batshit crazy at this cynical fucking betrayal of trust. The justification is bullshit. The methodology is bullshit. And their plan of action is moronic. This is a giant fucking shit sandwich served with sand and ground glass sprinkles, served up with a glass of cold piss. And they are telling us it's fucking Christmas. The community, it is safe to say, is less than impressed with what's going to be the biggest bait and switch on premium vehicles in gaming history. Literally. Matchmaking is always difficult in any online game, and rebalancing games is never popular with everyone. However, the logic behind the changes are as disingenuous as they are treacherous. Their argument goes something like this. People who bought and paid for premium vehicles with preferential matchmaking are guaranteed never to meet certain higher tier tanks in battle. For example, the TOG2 is a tier 6 and its MM is capped at 7, so it will never be in a tier 8 match. The biggest, slowest whale tank from World War I will not meet something like a post-war Russian IS-3 facefucker. Seems reasonable to me. But, according to the marketing department / Ministry of Big Fat Fucking Lies, matchmaking is really hard and it makes the computers cry. And those nasty meanies with their premium tanks with preferential matchmaking are discombobulating them even more and making their poor little servers take an extra fucking millisecond to pair up tanks with matches. Not that you would fucking notice, or any of this matters a fuck, since most high tier matchmaking only takes a matter of seconds, which is usually a fraction of the time it takes the game server to load up all the players and slowly creak into action. Wargaming's solution to this fictitious and manufactured problem is to do a cash grab on everyone's premium vehicles, fuck them and refuse to give people cash refunds, whilst incidentally still selling those said same vehicles in the premium store like they are throwing chum into shark-infested waters. They can't get rid of the fucking things fast enough. It's total bullshit. Basically, I rarely, if ever, wait for matchmaking. I log in, I click battle, and in a matter of seconds, I'm getting fist-fucked by some vicious 11-year-old Croatian. I'm usually back in the garage in under 3 minutes from start to finish. Business as usual. In fact, the only time I ever seem to get problematic queues is if I'm seal clubbing on low-tier tanks. Low-tier queues are fucking shite. Sometimes I've waited for nearly 2 minutes to get fist-fucked by some vicious 11-year-old Croatian. My point is, the only things wrong with matchmaking are caused by their own implementation of matchmaking. Blaming premium tanks is not only a betrayal of the paying customers that bankroll this game, it's clearly a big fat lie. Everyone can see it. Everyone knows it. Nearly every YouTuber has called it. It's a big fat lie. As many commentators have pointed out, they're pulling the age-old strategy of pissing down our backs and telling us it's raining. They are trying to sell this scheme by trying to convince the community that tier 8 premiums with preferential matchmaking are villainous scum and the root of all evil, and the only way to solve all of the non-problems is to fuck their owners over. They're going to give the tanks a slight buff and then chuck them in with tier 10 tanks. Awesome. We will have a chance to get a semi-refund where we get a token payment back and can trade up to another tank, which will eventually get fucked over too. This being said, even if their bullshit was true, which it isn't, but even if their lying sack of fucking shit lies were true, it changes nothing. If there are problems with Matchmaker, then fix Matchmaker. Don't fuck with the goods. We bought those tanks in good faith. If they have a problem, fix it some other way. This isn't about theory crafting or Matchmaker or some other esoteric statistical manifestation. This is about one defining fact. People paid real cash money for those goods. If they want to completely rework and change those goods, people are entitled to a cash refund. Not some kind of gift voucher, store card bullshit in-game currency. They need to pay people back the real life money they spent. Perhaps it's just the way of the modern business world that no matter how well a game is doing and how much money it's made, for some reason, when some soulless sociopathic business consultant walks into the room and suggests they make more money by just ripping everyone off and betraying their customer base, people just have to fucking try it out. It's like when someone hands you a knife and says, "Be careful, that's razor sharp." For some reason, you just have to touch the edge of the blade to find out yourself. even though you know you're going to get hurt. So according to Wargaming's bullshit public relations car crash of an article, apparently all these nasty bastards using their skanky arse shit premium scum tanks with preferential matchmaking are fucking destroying the game itself. Well, I did some tests, and as a general rule, queuing in my tier 8s takes between a millisecond and a few seconds. Queuing at low tier can take up to a minute. I guess we need to start matchmaking tiers 1 to 4 into high tier matches then, yeah? Surely that aligns with their philosophy. One issue here is what is really going on. As always, money is going to be at its core. Perhaps they have an algorithm which they reckon will sell more premium goods if they can change the fundamentals of matchmaking. Perhaps this system will encourage people to buy certain premiums, or they'll make money off all the trade-ins. Fuck knows what the game plan is here really, but there is a game plan, and one way or another they're not being honest about it, because it's certainly nothing to do with fucking matchmaking and queue times. The community response has been swift and predictably brutal. When even World of Tank YouTubers like QuickyBaby are freaking out, you know there is a problem. Mark GFL, aka Aging Jedi, quit as community contributor in a state of complete disgust. The furious response to the forum announcement has racked up nearly 100 pages of responses in the last few days. Nobody is happy, and most paying players like myself have one singular state of mind. Our personal future relationship with Wargaming hangs in the balance. If they proceed with this plan, for most of us, they will be considered to be a bait and switch publisher. They will become just another fucking untrustworthy bag of fucks where your money is not safe. If they back down, we will all breathe a sigh of relief and relax for 12 months until they announce their next batshit crazy idea. If they do not back down, then a large portion of their loyal paying customers will likely feel so betrayed they will never spend another penny on this game again. That's certainly my position. I love World of Tanks, and despite being very bad at it, I really enjoy playing it. It's the default game I play when I just want to roll solo and get away from things. I have also honestly had great experiences with Wargaming's customer service department. Really. One of the most amazing experiences I've had with a gaming company was thanks to them. This said, in the current gaming landscape where Day 1 DLC, microtransactions, pedo caches and in-game gambling loot crates are becoming normalised, it's starting to influence Wargaming as a company, and I have to sadly admit that I've seen them start to lose their way and squander some of their hard-earned reputation. The mechanism for winning the Type 59 at Christmas was flat out gambling. No ifs, no fucking buts. They're taking rare tanks like the Mutant, which was an exclusive reward for early backing of the game at launch, and they're selling it in the premium store. That's a fucking broken promise floating down the river of tears right there. Gambling loot crates during events are becoming the norm. Some cuntard in the marketing / Stasi mind control unit threatened the YouTuber and cultural ambassador SirFoch with a DMCA notice for criticising what was, let's fucking face it, a fairly ridiculous premium tank. The pay-to-win inscription fiasco, which was announced about 15 seconds after the CEO gave his rousing Braveheart speech about doing what's right by the players. Thankfully, they backed down from this at the 11th hour, and credit to them for seeing some fucking sense. The TLDR of all of this is that regardless of the pros and cons, if you bait and switch goods on your customers in this game or in any scenario, you destroy faith in your product. Wargaming has a long history of making silly decisions, then changing their mind after listening to the community. I hope to fucking God this is one of those situations. My prediction is that they will back down after the bank holiday weekend. Let's hope I'm right. Wargaming are honestly one of the best gaming companies I've run into. Don't laugh at me for saying that, I mean it. I say this from the bottom of my cold dead heart. But from time to time, they try and do something fucking idiotic. Trying to force players to customise their tanks according to stats rather than visual appearance. You need a PhD in fucking stupid to come up with an idea like that. We have to accept that from time to time, Wargaming needs to be persuaded to take the shotgun out of its own fucking mouth and go and play in the corner with the Lego set. Personally, I hope they see sense and back the fuck down. If they don't, then they will have fundamentally ruined themselves and become just another fuckhole company that sells you something, makes you sign an onerous terms and conditions agreement, then fucks you over. When companies get beyond a certain size, to some degree there's always going to be disconnect as departments get bigger, bureaucracy grows, and people fail to communicate core principles, goals and agendas. I still give Wargaming the benefit of the doubt, but there are clearly forces at work within the company who don't give a shit about the brand. They don't give a shit about the company's reputation, and they very clearly don't give two flying fucks about the customers. I'm sorry, but if they're going to start putting the TOG into high tier matches, they have clearly lost their fucking minds. I hope they regain their sanity before they cross the Rubicon. Good luck, and happy hunting.